A little over 3 years ago, when my father died, I decided I was going to build him a casket. My brother-in-law Travis is a luthier. He makes lutes, and so he has a lot of carpentry skills. And so I joined Travis in his workshop. Travis is impossibly skilled. He carves these little, what is the hole under the string in the guitar called?
The rose.
The rose, thank you. In his case, in many guitars, they're simply great big holes, but in his cases, they are indeed roses. They're like a rose window in a church. He's absurdly skilled with a tiny chisel. And one of the transferable skills we were drawing upon in building a casket was his familiarity with hide glue. My father I wanted to build the casket so as to embody his death in my hands, to create an outward and visible sign of it. But I also wanted Travis's help because my father was going to be doing green burial. Isn't it funny that organic food is what our ancestors called food, and green burial is what our ancestors called burial? What that means is that he was not going to be embalmed in any way, and everything had to be able to decompose. So we weren't allowed to use synthetic glue, we weren't allowed to use metal fasteners. And so hide glue is what luthiers use. One of the reasons being, when you heat it up, it stops being sticky, and if you've worn out a fingerboard, you can take the fingerboard off and put on a new one. So it was an immensely meaningful experience to build this casket along with Travis. We got it ready, and I'd been ill on the day my father had died. I had COVID or a cold or something, who knows. And so it was not ethical for me to go to the hospital where there were a bunch of frail folks. And so I had not seen my father's body. And I said to the funeral home folks, who were great, when we meet at the cemetery, would it be possible to see my father's body before we bury him? And they agreed to that. And the day of the burial came, and indeed, I got to see Dad's body and moved his death out of the realm of the intellectual into, indeed, there he is, and he's unmistakably dead. And then it became time to put the lid on and bury him. Except the funeral home had put the lid of the casket on either upside down or backwards or both. I'm not sure. And the goal was, because metal fasteners were not allowed, the goal was Travis and I had drilled these holes, and we were going to put dowels in them in order to hold the lid on. But because the lid was on upside down or backwards or both, the holes didn't quite line up the way they were supposed to. And so there I was at my father's graveside, just wailing away with a hammer, trying to drive these dowels into place. It's the sort of thing that would have delighted my father. He loved things going wrong and stories of disasters. And I told a great many people about this, always chortling and this unexpected thing and hilarious thing happened. And I think I told several people about it before I told this story to my friend Jenny, who said, "Oh, so many people, if they'd had that experience, I'm noticing you're finding it funny, and so many people would have been so angry. They would have been so angry with the funeral home." And I thought, oh my God, here at my father's graveside was one of the great one of the great lessons of my dad's life, which is, if you have your choice between finding something infuriating or finding it funny, you might as well find it funny. The lid is actually just as backwards or upside down, whether or not your blood pressure is through the roof or whether you are laughing. Or maybe a different way of saying that, and perhaps a more profound and churchy way of saying that would be, if you have your choice between choosing delight or choosing something else, choose delight. So today we hear the story of Nicodemus speaking with Jesus, And Nicodemus makes 3 appearances in the Gospel of John, once at the beginning, once in the middle, once in the end. He's drawn to Jesus, but he's nervous about speaking to him. He comes and speaks to him in the middle of the night as a consequence, hoping that nobody will see that he's there. And they have this whole conversation. Nicodemus is full of curiosity about how the kingdom works and what God is doing in the world and how Nicodemus can be a part of it. And you have the impression that Nicodemus is an earnest student, because Jesus says to him, if you want to be part of the kingdom, you need to be born once more from above. And Nicodemus, who's just frantically writing notes, says, okay, I have some logistical questions. It seems to me that I'm bigger than I was when I was born, and I'm not certain how I'm going to get back into my mother's womb. Like maybe we could map this out on some kind of whiteboard, and because I'm not totally understanding the mechanics of this, and they have a little bit of a back and forth, and then Jesus says to him, "Are you a teacher of Israel, and you don't understand these things?" Now, Scripture very rarely, Scripture is by and large not a modern novel, and it doesn't tell us most of the things we expect in modern novels, like people's appearance, what is happening inside of them, how they delivered words. So we just have these words, and we get to decide for ourselves how Jesus says them to Nicodemus. And maybe we can imagine him speaking with exasperation. Maybe we can imagine him speaking with impatience. Maybe we can imagine him speaking with judgment. But following on the lesson of my Father's life, choose laughter if you can, choose delight if you can. What if we imagine Jesus cracking up as he says these words? What if we imagine him with delight saying to Nicodemus, "You're a teacher of Israel, and you don't understand this stuff"? What if they are together busting a gut in this moment? In our family, one of our love languages, the Gottmans say you only get one love language, but I think there might be more than one that people have. One of our love languages is teasing. And I don't mean making fun of people's appearances or saying mean things when people are hurting. I mean naming our foibles or limitations. When I put the mayonnaise in the cupboard instead of in the fridge, that is a thing I will hear about with Phoebe, and she's mostly delighted, occasionally not entirely delighted. There's a lot of laughter in our house about one another's, the foibles of being human. It is how we say, "I see you, we are together, we're delighting in this life with one another." There's something liberative and loving and connective in sharing in delight. Yesterday was the parish work day at the 2 houses on the church property. So as you may know, our hope is to repurpose those houses as part of, in partnership with Family Promise, so that they would become housing for folks who are exiting homelessness. Families would stay with us for, Family Promise is calling those houses another step in their staircase out of homelessness and into stable housing. And a family would maybe stay with us for 6 weeks. If they're here during the summer, their children would get scholarships to Grace Art Camp. And part of what we were doing yesterday was getting the houses ready for those of us who were feeling robust and had saved up anger. We tore up carpet, an immensely satisfying job, actually. And other folks who wanted quieter jobs got to do some gardening outside. There was kind of a role for everyone. And much of my role in the morning was was moving around helping people if they ran out of jobs find a new job. They could do, here's some drywall you can patch, or here's some hooks you could take down from the wall, or who knows what. And so I got the privilege of visiting with a bunch of volunteers from the church and a bunch of volunteers from Family Promise, all of these folks working together, and multiple folks who were there spoke of their delight in getting to do this work, their delight in getting to do it with other people, friends old and new, their delight in getting to participate in an act of service, getting these houses ready to serve Jesus, and if Jesus is telling the truth in Matthew, serving Jesus himself through the poor, just as you've done to the least of these, so you have done to me. More than one person, in speaking of their joy, said, oh, this delight like this, this is the antidote to the despair of our times. And I thought, oh yes, that is absolutely right. The news is full of awful stuff, bombs falling, cruel government policy, the ongoing suffering of people on our streets, and getting out and doing delightful things with other people, finding joy, doing things like church, sack lunch ministry, cleaning up houses. This is the thing that will let us walk more lightly. Finding joy is important and transformative. You'll occasionally hear people share that bumper sticker that says, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And maybe that's right. That there may be some truth or accuracy to that, but after this experience, remembering my father and remembering just the experience of yesterday, I wonder if we might have a second bumper sticker that says, if you're not delighted, you're not paying attention. What if saying yes to joy is a subversive act? Occasionally you'll hear this critique that people who are full of joy are sort of denying the suffering of the world. But consider Desmond Tutu, one of the most joyous guys ever. Was he denying apartheid? He was not in any way. He was apartheid's great opponent, and he was laughing as he was doing so. I was remembering Dan Savage, who said that during the worst days of HIV/AIDS, when there was an indifferent and cruel government, that it was important for the gay community to get together and dance. That in dancing, folks were saying, we are alive, we are together, we remain vibrant, we are resisting despair. We could keep on plugging in examples. When we participate in joy, we are doing something holy, not instead of responding to the injustice of the world or the hardship of the world or the suffering of the world, but as part of it. This is part of how we respond and how we act for justice. So drawing on the lessons of my father's life, drawing on the lessons of Jesus, never forget that one of the reasons Jesus takes heed, one of my favorite lines in Scripture is, the Son of Man comes eating and drinking, and you say a glutton and a drunkard. Jesus likes eating and drinking so much that this is one of the things for which he takes heed. His first miracle is making more wine at a wedding. Jesus is someone who delights in being alive. Following my father's example, following Jesus' example, following Desmond Tutu's example, following the example of the gay community in the worst days of HIV/AIDS, even in this moment when the world is full of so much bad news, may we laugh, may we find joy together, may we participate in delight, and in so doing, may we invite the kingdom a little nearer.